This podcast is supported by patrons. You can find a full list of them in the description of this episode. Hello, listeners of Good Morning BSS World podcast. This is Wiktor, Doktor, and we are continuing our talks with companies who have presence in Ukraine. This series of podcasts is being organized in partnership with IT Ukraine Association, and this time we are going to focus on the company whose name is Beetroot. Today, I have a special guest with me who is Andreas Flodström. Hi, Andreas, how are you?
I am very good. Pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit about who you are. So personally, what kind of role do you have in Beetroot?
So I'm founder and CEO. Started this company 12 years ago. Swedish originally, and moved to Ukraine in 2012, and have been, running Beetroot and scaling this company in Ukraine since then, essentially.
So if you are the founder and the CEO, you are the best person to talk about your company.
Yeah, I hope so. Could be others.
I can also share something with our listeners and viewers who are here with us, especially with the viewers, because I have with me a magazine which we are issuing on a daily basis. This is a Focus on Business magazine, where in November 2021 I had the pleasure to run an interview with you, and we were already at that time having some kind of insights about your company, but now we are going to do it in audio and in video version, so for the audience who prefers listening and viewing rather than reading. So we will see how it goes. But before we will go deeper into your company, we always start our podcasts when talking with Ukrainian-based businesses about your view on the current status in the Ukrainian IT industry. So if you could share some thoughts from your side about that.
Yeah, I would say that, of course, the Ukrainian tech industry is impacted by both the war and the sort of global tech slowdown. But still, I would say that it's surprisingly resilient over these years. So I would say, from what I hear from our colleagues and what we see ourselves, it's a little bit tougher on the market, like on the demand side. On the talent side, it's actually good. Those things goes together. So yeah, as far as I understand, like the market has slowed down maybe like 10% in the recent like half a year or so. But I also see some positive tendency coming back, and now I'm talking about the export industry. But there's also a lot of interesting things going on in the defense tech, in the product sphere. So I think there is a very dynamic environment, and I believe that if you look back at this period, like 5 years later, we will see that this would have been a period where a lot of new innovation came out of the Ukrainian tech industry. I cannot say exactly which will be the winners for the future now, but I'm pretty sure they're going to pop out some really globally successful startup from this tough period of time for Ukraine. Yeah.
So let's leave it for the future. We will see how it goes. And now let's make a step back in time to the origins of Beetroot. Tell us how everything started and when.
So it started 2012. I was still in university. So essentially I was studying technical entrepreneurship. So Beetroot was my diploma work kind of from university. Me and Gustav, two friends from university, we had this idea that we wanted to build some kind of company in Eastern Europe which would have a positive impact on society. It's like very fluffy, and we didn't even know in what industry we would start from the beginning. But eventually figured out that we have some good knowledge in tech as engineers, and a good network of sort of Swedish startups. So very simply, we just moved to Ukraine, and we were traveling around in different countries in the region, just meeting like hundreds of tech companies, figuring out what they did, who was good in what. In the beginning, we were just like connecting some startup with the partner team. This is actually a sphere of business we still have. It's a tiny part of what we do, but still existing. And then eventually we got more and more hooked on Ukraine. We built ourselves better understanding for the industry and started to build our own teams. And long story short, today we are almost 500 people, and a majority is in Ukraine. Before the full-scale war, we had basically just Ukraine and Sweden. Like 98% of our people were in Ukraine. And these days it's a little bit spread out. We have more than 300 people in Ukraine. We also have an office in Poland, in Poznan, which is growing quite actively, which is quite exciting. Office in Bulgaria, and also recently we opened a presence or like delivery center in Vietnam, which we're also growing. So there's like quite a lot of things going on. Well, Beetroot, we basically call ourselves an ecosystem. What does it mean? It means that a big part of what we do is, of course, like software development for different clients. But we also have a part which we call Beetroot Academy, which is a really like impactful educational arm of what we do, where we essentially, we educate a rather big percentage of all the new tech specialists in the Ukrainian market, and we are currently also growing this into other markets. That's part of business almost 10 years now. Very practical oriented. We have a learning platform that these days we have actually quite successfully, I would say, implemented some really cool AI features where we sort of automate at least parts of what the teachers are doing, although we still have the cohort system with the classrooms and everything. So yeah, long story short, yeah, around 500 people, 7 offices in Ukraine, a little bit more than 100 people outside of Ukraine. We're working a lot with what we call, I said from the beginning, we did this for impact, and that sort of is the red thread in everything we do. So we try to work with impactful clients who has, impact in the sustainability field, like climate tech, edtech, e-health. Those are our sort of core areas, and also like sort of how we work with our team, we kind of want everything we do, we want to have sort of an impact element in it. That's always been also how we attract some of our, many of our very engaged beats and also some of our clients. So I guess that would be some kind of our positioning. Yeah.
You mentioned 7 sites in Ukraine. So which cities?
So we have, I will go maybe from west to east to make it easier. So Lviv, Ivano-Frankivsk, Zhytomyr, Kiev, Poltava, Kremenchuk, and Odessa in the south. We used to run a tech hub in Mariupol, like a really cool impact place. Like we had like thousands of people visiting every year, lots of events, education from kids to seniors, both in tech and entrepreneurship. So it's something we were running together with the city to transform this like industrial city towards more of a high-tech place, and that was really happening. Like we felt that every time I came maybe like every once 3-4 times per year, and every time I came I felt the city is changing to the positive. Unfortunately, as we all know, Mariupol is basically destroyed by the occupants. So that's a sad story. So Mariupol closed, and also we closed our Kharkiv office during the first month of the war. Most of our people, almost everyone, relocated. It also got damaged by shelling at some point. So so we have let's say western, central, south Ukraine presence. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned also Poznań in Poland, which is also one of the locations quite favorite in Poland when it comes for this kind of businesses. You mentioned Bulgaria. Bulgaria is Sofia or other city?
Sofia. And in Vietnam, mainly Ho Chi Minh, but also a little bit like remote, spread out. Yeah.
This Vietnam is very interesting location because there aren't too many European businesses who actually run their operation site over there. Can you tell us a little bit more about why Vietnam was chosen?
Yeah, it's an interesting story actually. So I've had the eyes on Vietnam already since 2017 when I visited first time. There was this like Swedish Vietnamese competitor that we actually eventually that's the competitor that we ended up acquiring now this spring. But so I've had Vietnam on the map. As for me, we've done some sort of subjective and objective analysis and sort of concluded that we think Vietnam is the best player in the region. And again, part of it is subjective, part of it is objective facts. What I like with Vietnam, which is actually a similar thing which I like with, for example, Ukraine, Poland, Bulgaria, it's the kind of underdog mentality that exists. So you have, Vietnam is a big country with growing population and so on, but you still have an even bigger country next to you, and you have this sort of underdog mentality and working hard. So Yeah, I mean, I've had very good experience of the engineering quality so far, like very friendly people. I spent all of January in Vietnam actually to get to know it a little better. And it's not a super popular location for outsourcing from Europe. However, it is very popular, for example, for Japan and South Korea, Australia, and so on. So at the same time, from what I hear from our team members and others, is that it's quite popular to work towards Europe for Vietnamese developers. So yeah, I think we have a good thing going on there, and I hope for now it's just the Beetroot Tech, so the outsourcing part. I hope, or like the plan is that eventually we will have Beetroot Academy scaling in all our locations and maybe even in more locations than when we have delivery offices. So yeah.
We will go to this academy in a moment, but I still am very curious about your clients or regions. So, who are your clients, and from which destinations they are? I assume you are having offices in so many countries and in so many locations. You are also targeting the clients from the global perspective, so various destinations, various continents. Which one is the biggest, or where are your clients located?
So we have clients from 20, I think last year it was 25 different countries. However, or around half of the revenue comes from the Nordics and mainly Sweden, actually. So what happened, I think, during the early days, I mean, we started with sort of startup clients, and then some of them became scale ups, some of them even became unicorns. And these days, sort of a mix of startup scale ups and some corporate clients. Sweden has, always been. I mean, we came from Sweden. That's where we have also local presence. Sort of, we have the snowball effect, a lot of good recommendations. So that's the strongest market for us. But actually, the faster growing markets right now is UK and the US. Although we don't really have a big local presence there, but we have good recommendations, good clients, and I think also we are growing now in these our sort of niche areas of climate tech, edtech, e-health. Like they're helping us to grow. Then of course, like all over Europe, then there is a little bit mixed spread out. I mean, we have clients even in India or in Australia or in Africa, but these are rather small in relation to um, biggest market: Sweden, US, UK.
Okay, so we already know the geography, and now let's focus. You mentioned that already. You started talking about this edutech, climate tech, and so on and so on. But what are the industries which are you are focusing the most?
So yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, climate and edtech and health tech, like those are the three that we focus most of. But I mean, to be honest, like the early days, I mean, we could build pretty much anything in any area. It's just that those three has over time, and they have become, we've built a good portfolio within those industries, and also, of course, built a good in-house knowledge that goes a little bit beyond just the pure tech development part, that we kind of understand the industries better and better. So that's why we also tend to focus on those. Yeah, but in overall, I think we have probably like almost all the different industries, although we kind of avoid gambling, tobacco, and some other areas. But yeah.
That's how mostly it looks like when you are a software house or a technology company. Then everyone is looking for some technology part which can be used for the business they are running. So let's focus now a little bit on your employees. A couple of hundreds of employees who are in different countries. What are their main skills? So when you are looking for a new team member, new employee, so what do you focus on? So who are the employees of Beetroot?
So, I mean, there's a couple of things. I mean, of course, like everyone, we look for the best engineers, but we also look at the mindset. So, again, like us having this like impact mission, it's actually, again, it's not only like sort of a CSR thing in a report. It's like, it's really who we are, and that we tend to really communicate when we attract people, because essentially, I mean, it's a people company. So if we want to be an impact business, we want to have people who are motivated by also doing impact. Then sort of culture wise, we are more than, let's say, the average, much more than the sort of the generic tech company. We are like sort of a quite decentralized structure which is based a lot on trust, self responsibility, decentralized decisions. So like we try to keep it sort of in units of between 10 and 50 people who has, it's almost like a business in the business, running own P&Ls and so on, and like extreme level of transparency. This means that we also need, people who want to have and take a little bit extra responsibility and who sort of appreciate that extra trust level that we're giving. So we are not a micromanagement company. We're not a top down in that sense. 49% women. That's a pretty high number for a tech company. I think we have had that as a goal from the early days, that we wanted to reach, gender balance or whatever. And of course, like in general, I mean, we are very, one of our values is also, we call it wholeness, which basically, I mean, it's the idea that you can take the whole self to work. So we try to be like very inclusive, like in our values and like who we welcome into our team, and the idea that you can, you don't have to wear a corporate mask at work. You are who you are. You take, you come to Beetroot to, of course, to do a great job, but also to develop professionally and personally. Like, so those are some key sort of features. And it can, this can sound like, HR words or whatever, but I think the what keeps me motivated, like one of the things that keeps me motivated, is when I see that when new people join us, I very often get this comment, like after a month or whatever, that people say, I've never been so trusted before. Like what you say about, people's openness, trust, blah, 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 like it's all sort of for real. And this makes me motivated, because I also want to work in an environment where I can go to work and not pretend something.
49% women. So you have already this balance.
Basically, yes. This is the level we reached in the last year. I think we've gradually gone from like 30, like 10 years ago, gradually increasing to 49. And in the educational part, in Beetroot Academy, we have actually a majority women. So it's around 55% over the 10 years. And in the last year, it's 62%. So it's even this balance on the other side. But I think overall for the industry, it's a good disbalance to contribute to.
It's already another time when you mentioned the Beetroot Academy. So let's now focus on this. What was the idea behind that? Yeah. So I know your core business now pretty well after this few minutes of talk. And now Beetroot Academy, something what I have in mind already hearing this, that this is education. Yeah. So this is an impact on education on the market. So for whom the Beetroot Academy is created, and who is the good audience for this organization?
So yes, I can maybe go back to, we started this in 2014, and it was triggered by actually the revolution of dignity, the Maidan revolution in Ukraine, and when the war started, and we were just like 15 people at the time, and we were like thinking, okay, let's come back to our big impact goals. What can we do? And at that time, of course, and I think, I mean, to a large extent still, a huge impact was and is to help people to get into the tech industry. And originally that was the original idea, but also to do it not only like sort of for anyone everywhere, but also target specifically sort of mid-sized cities, and also getting more women into tech, sort of target certain categories. But essentially, I mean, it started small. The idea was, we have tech knowledge. We build very practical oriented courses that helps you get straight into work. Like instead of fancy diploma, you have actually kind of a portfolio of things that you built after a course. So kind of boot camp, very active. We used to be, before COVID, we were 19 locations throughout Ukraine, like physical locations. We moved it all online, but kept the sort of the human element of groups, teachers. So these days we call it, I mean, it's a flipped classroom model where you essentially, you have video materials, you have this AI assistant that you can ask questions and so on during the course in the learning platform. And then you have a cohort with, 15 people in a group, teachers, the teachers as a community, the students as a community. There are, employers. So essentially, like it could be for, again, I'm saying like historically, like we have now educated around 12,000 people, let's say around 10,000 of those in Ukraine, but already we are up to 30 different countries. And most of those people are people who want to get into the tech industry. So either like straight out of university that wants to get some more practical skill set, or someone who wants to rebuild their career in another field. recently, like or for the last couple of years, we are also starting to offer more and more sort of upskilling opportunities for companies and for tech specialists who want to upskill. And though there we usually do it in a shorter format. So for the Enter the Tech, we do like intensive 4 months, half time or minimum half time. And then nowadays, for example, we work now with a few of, actually a couple of the biggest companies in Sweden. We do sort of workshop format where we teach their developers and their team members how to use generative AI to become more efficient in their work. And those are like sort of 2 days modules. Really impactful. We get really good feedback on that. So I guess you could say that we are sort of distributing the delivery between. I mean, we still have the intro to tech, but also the upskilling, and I would say it's also very scalable. Like, I mean, the goal or the sort of the big mission of the academy, because I've seen with my own eyes how individuals come into the academy, how they enter this industry, how they come out almost as a different person. And I just want to scale that. Like, so of course, like if we can do this with hundreds of thousands of people, or maybe even millions of people in the long term, that would be a huge drive. And of course, there is a synergy effect between Beetroot Academy and Beetroot that we have in both directions. We are a tech company. We are up to date with the latest technology. We can push this into the academy courses, and also the whole community of partner teams, of teachers. Of course, we also hire some of our best students every year, but we educate thousands. So we basically, any big tech company, at least in the Ukrainian market, would have Beetroot Academy graduates, like 100% sure. In Poland, for example, I mean, we just quite recently started, and we're starting to see some traction. So we have maybe, I don't know, 100 or maybe almost 200 graduates by now. So this community is just starting to build up, and that's also quite exciting time.
The courses are run in English or other languages?
Yeah, so again, historically, I mean, we did everything in Ukrainian. These days, already since several years, all the materials are in English, and most of the teaching groups are also in English. But if we have, let's say, enough people, for example, we run groups in Ukraine, both in English and Ukrainian, for example. So yeah, for the day, yeah, most of the groups in English. Maybe we'll do Polish language in the future, but at the same time, it's like, in order to work in this industry, you basically need English, right? At least if you want to be highly successful in the long term. So
yeah, definitely, especially that all coding is in English anyway.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so let's take a look a little bit into the future. What are your short and long-term plans, if you have any, at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, to be completely, transparent and honest, the last 2 years has been very challenging, I think, for every company that has had their main presence in Ukraine. However, I do feel that we kind of, we're not coming out of it because this war is going on, but I feel that we are getting stronger as we go, like as a company, Ukraine as a nation. So when you live, or like when you work in an environment of war, like, of course, it's hard to not, you will always think about sort of victory in the war, like prosperity for the country you live in, and so on. And even though I'm Swedish, I'm like a huge Ukrainian patriot, and also I think a huge European patriot, like, so I really like kind of worry for the future of Europe and everything. But at the same time, I do believe that what we are doing and what the tech industry is doing as a whole is a very important part of resilience. And because it's economy and so on, it's money into the system, but it's also, how can I say, it's also sort of a built into a global mindset, which I really like with this. So long story short, we plan to continue work with impact industries. We would like to be someone who is usually on the map when impact companies want to build great software. That's the goal. Then with the academy, as I said, we want to teach hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, hopefully all over the world, and especially kind of in emerging markets. Now we have Eastern Europe, something in Sweden, and I could see that happening in Asia, Africa, and so on. I don't know, maybe in the future, this is not part of our ecosystem today, but since we have helped hundreds and hundreds of tech companies and startups over the years, I think maybe at some point you would like to start some kind of Beetroot Ventures thing. But this is, again, it's always a few years ahead. And
that sounds like a great plan, to be honest. So keeping fingers crossed for that. So from Sweden to Ukraine, from Ukraine to Bulgaria, Poland, and Vietnam, and now the global strategy, there is only one missing point in our conversation. Do you know which one?
I'm not sure.
Where to find more information about Beetroot. So if somebody would be interested in finding more details about what Beetroot is, what you are doing, and also more details about the Beetroot Academy, where such person should go to?
So beetroot.co, so not com, but co, beetrootacademy.com, or actually if you're in Poland, beetrootacademy.pl as well. And I mean, if you found this conversation interesting, find me on LinkedIn, drop me a line and say that you heard me on the podcast or whatever. We'll be happy to connect.
So I will make sure to put all the details about the links to LinkedIn, to those web pages which you have mentioned, to the description of our talk. So this should help people to get easier to you or to your company. And for today, thank you, Andreas, very much. This was a really, really interesting talk, and I keep my fingers crossed for your further growth, especially in this education part. I think education is a key for success for many, many businesses, but also for young people who are just entering the market and who already know that they want to go into the tech industry. So I guess that such initiatives like Beetroot Academy could be very, very helpful to them. So thanks very much for today.
Thank you very much.